There's talk about Ghana's economy recovering, or let's say it has recovered. But what is the verdict of private sector on this whole debate? Inflation is going down. Ghana has passed its third review at the IMF staff level. What is the true state of the economy? Are things indeed improve when we're looking at the impact of all these development on the private sector? Indeed, I'll be engaged a very special person in this industry, Nana Osebonsu. He is the chief executive of the Private Enterprises Federation, as we get the thoughts or gauge the pulse of the private sector when it comes to these arguments about whether indeed the economy has recovered or not, as part of our special series on this whole recovery debate. And for engaging these special sectors of this economy, private sector, insurance, banking, to get the pulse, to get the verdict of the private sector on the economy recovering or not recovering. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition. And you've heard the arguments, the talk, the presentation from government, and depending on where you're standing about arguments that the economy is recovering or it has recovered. But what about the critical players in the sector? What are their verdicts about the state of the Ghanaian economy? Have things really improved, or it is getting worse, or we are still in the woods and we have not got out of it? And as part of our special discussions on the economy and getting the response for those who are in the critical sectors of this economy, PMS will be engaged a lot more players in this industry as we look at the economy recovery and how it's impacting on other sectors of the economy. And we can't have this discussion without engaging the private sector. Nana Osebonsu, he is the chief executive of the Private Enterprises Federation. And I thank you so much for your time, for being managing to pull you in here in studio to have a discussion on the economy, private sector, and all the concerns you have. I mean, after the IMF third review agreement, engaging government, engaging the Bank of Ghana governor, the argument is that the economy has now recovered. What is the verdict of the private sector on this? Has it really recovered? Are we seeing the impact from the perspective of the private sector?
Well, George, thank you for hosting me and bringing me here to have a conversation. And where you're coming from, that they say has recovered from where we were, from the domestic debt exchange, who deprived a lot of private sector of the income they had acquired on their own. No, we haven't recovered. We're still reeling from these exchanges. We're still reeling from high cost of doing business and the high cost of interest. That is what is happening to us. So to the authorities, yes, from yesteryears and from yesterday where we were, to them it's a recovery. We may be in a process, we may be in line and doing things, but we haven't recovered, sir. No, we haven't.
But then coming from inflation of more than 50%, coming from cost of credit that was so high, again, playing the devil's advocate, is it not fair to say that looking at the pre-COVID or before we got into COVID and all the challenges, you would want to agree with those who are arguing that we are now seeing some firm signs of recovery, and even for those who might get into that space of saying that we have recovered?
Well, I like the word that, we're stumbling into recovery, but we haven't recovered. Because we're competing in an international arena where other players are having interest costs at less than 8%, cost of money at less than 7%. And we have opened our doors under the continental free trade arena. Ghana is open sesame to everybody. And if we say we recovered, the others are coming. And this time, no cost to them. They have a big market in Ghana because our taste buds always prefer non-local, situations. So we haven't recovered. We need to have a recovery. We will need the support of the infrastructure fund, infrastructure development, housing costs. Do you know how much it costs for an average house? No. Do you know even the cost of a bag of cement used to be about $5 some few years back. Now it's about 120. Is that a recovery? Has that gone down? No, sir.
And then if you look at 2 years ago, you had inflation About 50%?
Oh, yes,
that
indeed.
Has to do, because now you're looking within the 20 range.
Within 30.
If those
yes.
who want to look at these indicators and make the judgment, is it not fair that indeed the volatility that we experienced some 2 years ago compared to now, that volatility has tapered a little bit?
George, I like your language. I like your volatility, dwindling, cost of money and all that. But the impact on the ground, it lowered. Yes, volatility lowered. Interest rates are reduced. But are we competitive against our peers elsewhere who have open doors that come in and do business on their own? And the international players that come in and we dangle tax exemptions left and right, they take it home. Are we recovering? What are we benefiting from? What are we doing to boost the local businesses? You see, people set up business to make money, to create wealth. Every time politicians or the authorities are talking, they said jobs creation. Nobody sets up a business to create jobs.
Has there indeed been job creation on the ground? I mean, you are in the private sector. Has the environment been good for you to engage and employ people?
No, because if my cost of surviving is so much, I cannot do well, make money, and add somebody else. When I make money, then I see the horizon is bright. And I have to bring somebody like you and others to come and join me and make more money. And that's what jobs creation comes about. It's not that I set up a business to create jobs. It's a point that I want to make money. And once I do, I bring others.
Is the environment now more difficult for you to employ compared to some 3 years or 4 years ago?
Well, some few years back was horrible. Let's not forget that.
So if I could get the word to describe...
It's better now. It's better now. But
there's an English word for horribility, I should use that.
It's better now, basically because, as you said, we are in a process of recovery. But we haven't recovered. We haven't recovered. We are in the process. And now, to me, this current authorities are gone already. So we're looking for tomorrow. The new players that will come in come January 1st, will come in January 7th. Look at the players. That's when we're going to have an argument as to what do you want to do? How do you do it? Who do you rely on? Domestic private sector. That's a vehicle to hang your coat on to make sure that Ghana's economy boosts.
And then I asked the question about the employment thing because we knew that 2 years ago, COVID time, and when things got so bad,
yes.
Now we'll come to the domestic direction program. We had some firms in your space asking people to go home. And I'm just asking that, are they now calling them back or still?
Well,
listen?
They're not calling them back in entirety, but at least they're doing a little better than when our hard-earned interest, hard-earned income were taken away by the debt exchange, which we did not wholeheartedly approve because we didn't have a yes or no answer to them. So now
and there are some who decided not to subscribe to it.
Well, I mean, it's not a matter of subscribing. When your interest is that we're going to pay you X, that was governmental with fiat. We're going to pay you X.
But still there was that option of if you think that it's bad, don't subscribe to it.
Did we have a choice?
I get you.
Did we have alternatives? If it's bad, what else do you do? I'll give you some of our partners definitely lost millions. Not because they prefer that, but there were no alternatives. And the guy said, either eat or don't eat what they give you. Even though what they give you is not palatable, you have no choice but to swallow it. So we look at it, looking at tomorrow, because as I said, this is done as of now. They're gone. 2 months, hallelujah. Come new players. What are we going to do? What are they bringing to the table? I said, hang your coat, your life on private sector. Assist private sector with their recovery to bring jobs, to bring wealth creation. The government's own income stream is dwindling. Why? Basically, we talk about it at the latter part of this program. Because our cocoa industry is not doing well. Good, we have good reason to talk about that. But when you come to private sector players, the people who make money, who make a difference, who create jobs, 86% is private sector. And our small potatoes, we're not big players. But we go around the world attracting, enticing big players to come in, and we give them tax breaks.
And I'll be getting back detailed into the tax policy and all that.
Thank
but
you.
Again, when I gauge the pulse or your fears or your concern, this is an administration that came to power about seeing the private sector as an engine of growth and all the rest. But then I get from you that in terms of giving the required support to the private sector, you might have not gotten that from them.
Well, I wouldn't say we didn't get the support. Maybe they didn't know what support to give us. We gave our wholehearted support to inaugurate that government. And that government, we were expecting, maybe our expectations were too much, or maybe we didn't know their limitations. But it came to the point that they didn't deliver. Period.
And that is the verdict on this
That is the verdict on private
when
sector.
it comes to this administration and what they did for the sector, they failed to deliver.
They have failed to deliver to us.
That is quite serious, some would say.
That is very serious. If you recall, December 2016, the Private Enterprise Federation hosted the incoming president and his entourage in a big fanfare. Tell the world how you're going to run Ghana. And they came in, we gave a 10-point scenario. And they gave a response. And we didn't do better after that day. And this is the result, as we see ourselves now, that the private sector is not doing well.
I mean, some would say PEF it's a huge body. Couldn't you push enough with this F or failure tag that you're giving to this administration when it comes to the private sector? Some are saying that, what about you yourself? You had all the power to push to ensure that private sector is giving the required assistance, create the right environment for private sector to succeed.
George, I don't know what you said. We have the power. We don't have a power. We have persuasion.
The persuasion power to push, to press the powers to ensure that government does your will or put in place the right structures to aid the growth of the private sector.
Let me give you a scenario. We used to have a quarterly meeting with the economic management team.
Yeah.
Where did that go?
What happened?
What happened? It failed. We never met again because
why
they didn't like the music we were playing.
What music were you playing now?
What we're playing is that domestic private sector should be the spearhead of all the activities in Ghana.
And what did the government say?
Government says, wait a minute, that's not what we think. What we think is a collective action by all, which we agree.
And that led to that engagement being cancelled.
The language was not palatable in the sense that we weren't called to the table. There was one that...
Because of your comment, government refused to engage
some
you
of the
again.
things that we brought to the table, the indices that we analyzed, that maybe the cost of doing business is high, maybe the perception of corruption index is high and all that. People don't appreciate the forthrightness of the...
You spoke truth to power then, and they didn't like it.
We spoke the truth.
And they didn't like it.
And we wanted that to be toned down to the point where we can all feel comfortable. So today, like we welcome that 2016, today we can say, hallelujah, goodbye. We thank you very much for coming, and we appreciate your coming. But we can't say that now. We can't say that because things didn't work in our favor. Things didn't do right by us, by the domestic private sector. And that is what, unfortunate that it should happen that way.
But now some will say this is quite serious because this is an administration that we all thought that it has a better posture towards private sector.
Yes, sir.
But because you were assertive in your engagement, you were shown the marching orders.
We weren't showing the marching orders, it's just that we're not coming to the table no more.
But that is another way of saying
that. Is a negative way
you
of
would not
saying,
tell us what to do, so bye-bye.
Thank you. You're not telling us what to do, and we don't appreciate you saying all these things. Thank you very much. Maybe when we're ready, we call you back. We don't. We haven't had this collective action of engagement that used to be on a quarterly basis for periods under different presidencies and all. Now it failed. The last 1 year, we haven't had any meeting at all.
How does this truncation of this engagement, some would say, affected the larger economy? Because some would say that your inputs would have gone a long way to shape the direction of the economy and certain things that should be done and should not be done?
Well, I couldn't have said it better than the way you put it. Yes, that's the angle we were looking at. There will definitely be disagreements of sorts along the ways. And we agree that we may want the sky is the limit, but they feel like, oh, this will suffice, this is good, and that we can tiptoe into certain areas. It didn't happen that way. But the fact that we have disagreement, that's part of nature. That is part of discussions. That's part of doing business. But it didn't sit right, and that was the end. And the end doesn't mean the economy is also sitting and waiting. The economy is not performing.
Now, do you regret that opportunity to engage government to ensure that the right things are done for the private sector was lost because of the posturing?
Yes.
And do you regret that today?
Yeah, I regret it very, very much, because when we talk, we can agree to disagree. But when we don't talk, you don't know what I'm thinking. I don't know what you're thinking. But they have the keys to the door, the keys to the house, and they make the decisions. We can only say and advise and take whatever is handed over to us as part of the general economy. We cannot dictate. But the point is, it affects our pocketbook. It affects our livelihood. And that is where it hurts.
Now let's look at, so for you, what do you think is the way forward? I mean, it appears an opportunity has been lost, and the impact on the sector, well, today the verdict is out there and the data is out there to share. But for you, what's the way forward?
The way forward tomorrow is whoever comes tomorrow, we will welcome you with open arms. But we want you to hang your coat and hang your life on private sector, on domestic private sector, because we can deliver with your support. With your support. The support means what? Infrastructure delivery, infrastructure fund, cost of doing business lowered in a way that the domestic private sector, I keep using keyword domestic, because our livelihood is embedded in the country. We're not running away. We're not going anywhere. We can't take or we repatriate any profits anywhere. So we want them to sit with us and say, where do you guys want to go? Then we find out from, you are the leaders. You have the authority to do whatever you feel like doing. Do you think that this is an approach that we both can work on and make it happen so we are all rewarded? At the end of the day, the government of the day wants to look good. And we will want to support for them to look good. But we also want to, we invested our resources, our livelihood. And our livelihood, there should be returns on that. So we can create the jobs, that we can create the wealth, and we all will be happy.
Now let's talk about cost of credit. And I'll first start with the monetary policy rate. It has come down. Some are excited, some are indifferent. Some are saying that it is the Ghana reference rate, it is inflation, it's the treasury bills rate. What are your thoughts on this? Since the rate came down, have you seen the banks respond to that in terms of the cost of credit argument?
Thank you. That is where you should start with. The cost of money to the average borrower, has it come down?
I mean, and you are best to tell me.
No.
Private sector.
You see, that is
apart from the banks and all the rest, are you making it? Is it more easier now to get access to credit?
You're citing the indices that this monetary policy rate and this reference rate, these are all bookish kind of rates. The main ingredient or the main
effective lending rate
is the effective lending rate. Where we go to the bank, I want X, and they say, well, it's going to cost you 10 cents. Or
is it going up or is going down?
Well, tiptoeing down. Tiptoeing down.
But those are signals, Nana, some would say.
It's not signals as fast enough for us to be able to recover the way we want to recover. Because you want to see that I invested my money and I want the returns. It's not like you go home, you come back, and they're still sitting down and waiting and looking at you. We want to see where there's action. Yes, it's not like you jump up the open market rate is this, open market rate is that. We have to find a way to make the private sector cost of doing business lowered in the sense that we in the arena, we can do business. It's not because The central bank dictates, and we have not much of a choice. Because the average funding coming from within is limited. So to bypass the banking system and all, what else do you have? You don't have a portfolio of investment companies that floating shares and all that you can put your money in and say, disregard these guys, let them go, we can have alternate sources of doing business. No, we don't.
Has the cost situation improved? I mean, or it has gotten well? Because the argument here is that you look at inflation is trending down, policy rate has gone down, and that's why you are the real businesses down there. And so, has the situation improved for you, or listen, the value is the same, just like what we said when we introduced it?
No, the value is not the same.
Yeah.
It was 33, it comes to 30.
Yeah.
So has it improved? Yes, it has. If some few basis points, a few steps, as I said, tiptoeing into recovery. We will want to see that. We want to see that continue. Maybe once it continues gradually, we get to where the end zone where we want to be. But as of now, there's no hallelujah, there's no freedom, and there's no singing praises that, oh yes, we have recovered, we are there, and we're going home, and clap for us, that's the end. No, we are now tiptoeing, we are now in the process. And that process, we hope and pray it will continue with the new administration that comes to power come January 2025.
You've been disappointed in this administration. What is the posturing now to ensure that whoever takes over, they get it right by making the private sector the center of growth and the center of the expansion of this economy, by making the environment right for the private sector?
George, I don't want to give a verdict that they have been crucified or they haven't. Well, the world is looking at all of us, and we hope that things would be better. What we're saying is 2.5 months is not enough to do any recovery.
Yeah.
We look at tomorrow, and tomorrow whoever comes in has the opportunity to engage with the private sector, sit with them. What are your difficulties? Which are the areas that you're hurting? What do you expect us to do for you? What can we do to create the wealth that this nation needs? What can we create to even boost the government itself to be able to perform? And what do you do to bring the teamy young people who are coming into the marketplace to find jobs? If we make money, we create the jobs. And we create the jobs, they have the opportunities to grow with us. So those are the areas that, to me, I don't want to prescribe. We can't prescribe. Private sector, we never prescribe. We just encourage. Let's engage. By engagement, we can all share. And
Is it too late to get the main dominant political parties to look at cutting them with a pact that will then let you appreciate their position on what they would do for the private sector, in terms of a pact or agreement that could, again, force their hand to ensure that you have to make the private sector your priority?
No, I think the point is, as I said beginning, we are the tail end of the entire structure. So less things fall the way they're going to fall naturally. Then concentrate on the incoming administration. Let's look at what pillars do we want to see in place. Come with the appointments. Who are appointed what? Minister of Finance, Minister of Private Sector, Minister of Infrastructure. These are the key, Minister of Construction. These are the key areas that we're going to look at. So when these appointments come, that's when we're going to stand and wait a minute. This guy never had the opportunity to do A, B, C, D. So why are you bringing him to the table? This is not a training school, you know. So we are looking at welcoming those that came, like we did before we were burnt. But we're not going to forget about that. We're not going to say that we can do again. It's always a point to recover and stand tall and engage. The engagement is critical, because that is how you're going to learn what they have in mind. They're going to learn how, because they've never been in government before. The new government is going to be a new government. And we want to work with them and maybe get them a little education and the traction of what the government takes to do and needs to do. And then we can both.
And whilst we complain about the cost of credit,
yes, sir.
Some of the banks would also argue that when they lend the money to the private sector, the NPLs is there to show. Some are not paying back.
Oh, that's
factored into the cost of credit.
That hurts. Yes, indeed, it's true.
And so you are partly to be blamed in terms of the cost argument here about the cost of credit in this country.
George, it's the responsibility of a good banker, and I'm a professional banker, to make sure that you do your credit analysis critically and make sure that the people that are borrowing from you have the capacity and the ability and the capability to pay back. That's your. In certain jurisdictions, having an NPL, non-performing loan portfolio of more than 1.5.
Numbers are quite high.
Quite very. Very.
So some would not take the private sector out of the challenge that a lot of you guys are defaulting.
You didn't go to the market and dish out the money. You did your critical analysis and say, I'm going to give it to George, I'm going to give it to Nana, I'm going to give it to Kwesi. So that means you did your various investigations to make sure that they qualify and they have the capacity to pay back. If you didn't do that homework, you're not a good banker. If you didn't do the bankers are not government. The bankers are private sector people who want to do business in the marketplace. They have to make their money. But it's very difficult for them to make money because the people they lend into are struggling. And you want to help them through their struggle to make sure they break the barriers, make the money, and pay back. So if the economy itself is not performing, how do they pay back?
Because some will say, Nana, we know the credit appraisals that the escrow, the committees, the credit committees, everything that they do to ensure that they get it right. So some will say that it might not be fair to blame the banks here. It might be fair to blame that businessman who would not submit the right documents to the banks, give a certain false impression, sometimes move the funds to different places and all the rest. They change banks, they move somewhere else and all the rest, and they don't invest the money in where they have to invest.
George, the average businessman doesn't do that. Who has the keys to the vault? The banker. The private sector goes to the bank, knocks at the door, they open and say, I'm looking for credit. They say, okay, what's your name? Kwesiata. Then they do the critical analysis and on and say, you qualify. Did they do their critical analysis indeed?
Credit appraisals and all that.
The appraisals?
Yeah.
The evaluation?
Yeah.
If they did, they wouldn't have an NPL of 10+%. It should never happen. They might have done that. The private sector, not all private sector are private sector businesses. They are crooked businesses indeed. Yes, let's not forget that. And these crooked businesses are both local and international. Some take, they run, they don't come back. Some take, they do business that they struggle. I would love a businessman who is struggling and comes back to the bank and says, I'm struggling. Can you assist in providing technical assistance? You see, in the banking provision of credit, normally doesn't come with technical assistance. But if you go to the investment companies, the technical assistance is provided as a consequence of the provision of the credit line to you. So that technical assistance is very critical, boosting the capacity of the businessman to appreciate the difficulties within the business environment to learn how to do business the proper way. And those are the critical things that we have to be able to do.
Now how do we get around this high non-performing loans challenge? Because some are saying that when you look at the numbers, it is worrying, whichever way you want to look at it. The impact on the bank's operations, the impact on the cost of credit, and the impact on even extension of fresh credit to the private sector.
Why should
we get around this?
If I'm a banker, why should I extend credit to the people who have failed? But as I said, do your homework. This is your job. This is your life. You have to have the expertise to do the critical analysis and evaluation as should I? Don't give it to anybody that walks through the door. Give it to the people, selective people, customers, selective businesses, and then provide key element, technical assistance. The guy is in the market of selling tomatoes. Do they know where to get the tomatoes from? Do they know the market? Do they know what competition exists in that arena? You are the banker, it's your money. Add a little element of that, bring the person who knows the market conditions, and boost the performance of the business to be able to recover, do business, and make money, and pay you back. Your essence of a credit extension, or the essence of the technical assistance, is to enable the borrower perform and pay you back, so at least everybody goes home happy.
The contractors will also want to put the blame on government, the fact that government is not paying them, and therefore if government pays them, they will pay the banks.
George, you said that. If somebody had made a contract and had not been paid for since, today is what, 24? Since 2015, how do you expect them?
That is a situation on the ground, and I mean, in Private Enterprise Federation, you have more data than I do.
Oh, yeah,
Contractors have done jobs since 2015,
yes,
and
we
they have
know,
not
we
been
know
paid.
contractors who have not been paid.
Since 2015.
Since
they went through all the processes, the mobilization certificates and all the rest.
What do? You go and claim, and they say, well, we're now doing truncation, we're now doing left and right.
Since 2015.
Yes, yes. But you see, the essence is, why should we delay in paying people who have performed their jobs?
That went through the processes, the scrutiny, the vetting, and all those
that part I don't want to go there. That part I don't want to go, how they end that contract. That, because we don't know that. We don't look into that. But once a contract is extended, you expect every partner in the contract obligations to be able to perform their functions. And if you didn't, you give it to John Q, who is John Y, thinking that they can perform, and you don't know, do your analysis that the guy is not even a contractor, and you give him the job, how do you expect him to perform? It's unfortunate. So we feel like, let's look at the legitimate businesses. We have business associations. We have sectoral
like
business.
PEF.
Yes.
Private Enterprise
PEF is
the umbrella body.
The umbrella,
for all
the
these
aggregate
business,
of everybody.
Sorry.
And if some contractors are not performing, you go into the association, you will find the good ones, you find the bad ones. Like human beings every which ways. The good ones, the bad ones. But when you're doing your business, you have to do the critical analysis. I keep coming back to that critical analysis point. Other than that, you don't give it to anybody who walks through the door. Be selective. Make sure, because if you don't give the loan, the money sits in the bank, it sits in the vault. Yes, that's not what you want to do. But if you give it out, it's gone already, and now you have to chase. Are you walking to chase it? Are you trotting to chase it? Are you running to chase it? Critical. So you have to make sure that you do find the right partners that borrowing from you, and those that are really partners, you work with them, you reward them with your credit line. Believe me, if you babysit them and handhold them, they are your better life partners in the future.
And I engage some of your members, and I still get the concern that even access to credit is still a major concern. You're no longer talking about the cost, but even the access.
Having the right, having the money.
Why is it? Because, I mean, if I see the associations that make up your members, these are well-structured firms. I mean, they have their registration, all those things are in place. But it appears that even getting access to credit is a huge challenge.
Yeah, but George, every banker or every fund that has the resources to lend has its critical marking points. So the fact that you belong to John Q Association or John Y Association doesn't mean that they have to give you the credit. They have their limitations as to who gets what. And then once they do, they have to be able to chase you and make sure. To me, the key element, and I was talking to the Bankers Association Chief Executive, John Wiafe, who is an astute banker. And I said, John, we have to be able to break the barrier and provide technical assistance to support our credit lines. If you do, the technical assistance will definitely make a difference. Even though it's at your cost, reduces your profit margins, but it makes sure that your NPLs are very reduced to the minimum. These are things that we want to do. These are things that we want to see. That, on the other side of the coin, is that we also telling our businessmen, if you break the bond and you don't pay, don't forget that that may be your end, because they may not come back to you forever. Because every time we have a reference that is passed along to the other banks, you go to, who did you borrow from yesterday? Say, oh, I never borrowed. Then they send inquiries to other banks, and your name pops up.
Credit Reference Bureau. You know.
Yes, John Q never paid. He was delinquent, he was late, he was this, he was that. So we also encourage our business people, be punctual with. If you're having challenges, approach your bank. Tell them we have challenges, we find it difficult in making our income because the market has dropped and whatever. The bank will be willing to work with you. But here we don't do that. We think that, oh, once I've taken the money, hey, the sky is the limit, and watch my back. Catch me if you can. That is not the right.
And I'm still on the access argument. I mean, every day I hear several multilateral institutions funding through the banks. I mean, special credit grants and all the rest. Where are all these monies going? I mean, it appears they're not coming to the, coming to the private sector, those who
I keep saying,
need to have access.
Somebody has the key. And those who have the key should make sure that they watch with their hand and heart and head and eyes to make sure that they only open the doors to the right people who would take the money and pay back. Don't think any John Q that walks through the door is a good client. We have people whose business is to jump ship anytime, from country to country, from bank to bank. It happens. But we have to be able to keep them out of the banking system so at least the banks can perform creditably.
And when we come back, we'll talk about taxes. Is the GRA being that friendly to you with the concerns about taxes in this system and even local content, domestic in terms of having a more domestic approach to supporting the private sector, and even the whole argument about even that big question about galamsey and how that is also affecting the sector. This is PM Express Business Edition as we engage the Chief Executive of the Private Enterprise Federation to talk about the economy and the private sector on PM Express Business Edition. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition as part of our special discussion on the economy and several sectors and whether it's impacting them in terms of the recovery or not. Nano Sebo is the Chief Executive of the Private Enterprise Federation. We're engaging him on the economic recovery, so says government, and whether it's indeed impacting the private sector. Nana, taxes. I mean, I wouldn't engage, any day won't pass without engaging any businessman that will be complaining about the tax challenge issue. Has it gotten bad? Has it gotten worse in terms of the collection issues and all the rest?
George, taxes in Ghana is 25% of your profit.
Corporate tax? Or
corporate taxes.
Hasn't that? Okay, sorry.
Yep, 25%.
Still 25, yeah.
Small or medium or large or whoever you are. And it's affecting businesses' opportunity to use their own, what we call internally generated funding to prosecute their business. So what we had done, do a critical analysis from 2018, 2019, 2020, do a critical analysis what the businesses we want to see on the back of their IGFs, internally generated funding, which is being taxed at 25%. If you create a staggered tax system, allow the small potatoes to pay, maybe those who made 5,000 pay 2%, who made 7,000 to pay 2.5, on and on up to the people that pay 25%. A lot more businesses are willing to pay their fair share of the taxes. But as they see, as I said beginning, they went into business to make money for themselves, and that if for anything, they want to keep a majority of their IGF for themselves, for their businesses. So here comes the tax man and says, well, you owe 25%. The guy says, wait a minute. Yes, you think I owe 25%, but I'm not even taking home 25% of the net income that I made because of liabilities left and right. So what we're saying is, let's work through the system and based upon the asset value of the company, create a tiered or staggered tax system. You pay a percentage of your net income of your income to taxes based upon your asset size. That definitely is a better point for the private sector. And people are running and will run in various jurisdictions where you have a tier tax system. not one shoe fits all, everybody pays 25%, and no.
Now, some will say that this tax is a tax on profit. If you're not making profit, you are not paying. But why the concern here? The argument here is that that profit is on your profit. That tax is on your profit. So
tax is on my profit.
If you're not making profit, you are not paying.
George, where did
you made profit from your business dealings and operations?
Thank you.
You've not made. They are not taxing your loss position or taxing your revenue.
You're taxing my income,
yeah.
And I want to use the income to grow, to expand, to compete.
I know there've been arguments about a tax before even production commences and all those things. That is there, but this corporate tax, and I stand to be educated,
yes,
is on your profit.
It's
so
on the profit.
Where lies this argument by businesses that vary the tax levels? And because you made profit, share with the states so they can develop the economy.
Okay, George, I made a profit for the benefit of my company.
Yeah,
and I want to use a majority of that profit margins to expand my business.
Plow a fraction back to the business, but pay the tax.
A fraction may not be enough. Why should I pay 25% to others when you've almost given more than 25% tax exemption to the big players? And the small potatoes are now being penalized because they couldn't afford to pay the 25%. Somebody's making $50,000. He has staff. He has expenditure to. At the end of the day, he says, if I pay this, I won't be able to do A, B, C, D for the expansion of my company. They have a projected projection for a period of 5 years. I won't be able to make it. Is that what we want? No. We want them to expand to the point where I said, let them hold a greater percentage of their IGF, of their internally generated, or their taxes, or their income, and they will be willing to pay. In the long run, in the long term, you see, when you're doing that 25% tax bite, you're not looking for the long term. You're looking, this is it today, pay us, and then at the end. I have heard some tax people in a discussion with them, that's where they go after recalcitrant taxpayers in the night to destroy their business.
Is that happening? That they are invading these firms or businesses in the night because they are not paying it?
Because they are recalcitrant taxpayers, and the tax man is going to make it impossible for them to do business. Now, if you do
that... The man is not paying his tax, and they have an obligation to pay their taxes to the state.
They have the obligation, but you don't have the responsibility and obligation to destroy their business. Because you didn't set a business up for them. Okay. So once you destroy their business, the future income on the basis of taxes, you're depriving that by yourself because you destroy the hand that fed you because they didn't pay one time. Allow them to grow, allow them to expand, create a staggered tax system that they pay maybe 2%, they pay 5%, they pay 7%, based upon their asset size. We all continue to grow. George, you weren't born like this. You've grown to be a big man. Now, so if they allow you to grow, you become a big man. If they sit on you, you're going to be a dwarf.
Is it not more of a staggered tax approach for SMEs?
That's a
medium size,
yes,
big size. Maybe that could be the way to go.
That is the way to go. This is it. We had done a 2018 to 2020 tax analysis, a tax research that would create a lot more income for government than the way we have it, the 25% one shoe fits all. And that's what we're pleading with government.
Now, what happened with all these things you put together, engaging government, engaging GRA, engaging those who matter?
GRA was even part of it.
And so, why haven't we made a progress?
We have made
policy
progress.
Unit at the Ministry of Finance.
We want to bring this into Parliament because we had engaged both sides of the aisle, and there were plausible responses that for the future, we think that come next year, as I said, with the new administration, we teach them how and what, and then we together work on this. So at least the revenue, and that definitely improves the revenue collection of government.
If they go the tier way.
If they go the staggered or the tier tax system.
Is the current tax structure anti-business?
That is hunting business.
The anti-business, some would say, is anti-business.
I wouldn't say it's anti-business.
The structure, the framework.
Yes, I wouldn't say it's anti-business. I would say that it's not favorable to business.
Favorable to business.
So the businessman says, okay, if it's not going to reward me or it's going to enrich my business, then I'm not going to pay the taxes. He said, catch me if you can. Then he turns around.
Are we seeing more firms? I think tax avoidance is the going that way, because then they will employ all the legal brains and the tax experts to reduce their exposure to government. Is that what is happening now?
No, I wouldn't say it's that happening.
They are not evading. This is the avoidance.
Tax avoidance.
Their exposure because of the multiplicity of taxes.
Thank you, George.
That has happened.
You've been in this business for a long time. Yes, we're going to employ the crafty taxman who is now doing business to avoid taxes, to avoid the payment. And then the cost of tax collection goes up against the government, in the sense that the revenue, the little revenue that goes into government, a majority is going to be used to track and prosecute those who are not paying. So if we do this target tier taxes and make it comfortable, believe me, our report indicates that at least there will be more than 15% more private sector players that will pay their taxes at the right time so the government can even invest.
Now, there's the moral argument also to be made about the fact that you're doing well, you're making profits and all the rest. You know, the bit about the tax, I mean, the Apples and all, even the Facebook are still employing strategies to reduce the exposure to government, moving their headquarters and even to Ireland and all those things. So, but there's a moral argument about the fact that as a business, you are benefiting from the social amenities and all the rest. Trying to employ tactics to reduce your exposure, the moral argument, it doesn't wash.
George, I think we go into some semantics that I wouldn't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. The moral argument. The guy is a business person. He makes money. Yeah. He wants to keep.
So meet that fraction of obligation.
Yes,
to
the fraction of obligation.
Don't employ structures to reduce your exposure. It's not criminal though, but to reduce your exposure to the state in terms of your tax payments.
The point is that the business wants to expand, and that's the reason why they set up a business. They have a kind of projections where they want to be and all. Yes, they will pay the taxes. Yes, they do pay a percentage of the taxes, but they feel like you are encroaching on them so much that they cannot grow. So what we're saying, allow them room. In the long run, it's going to be beneficial for government because they're going to be expanded, they're going to expand, and they will pay more taxes so far as the liabilities is concerned.
What has been the engagement to Jerry? Because the argument I get from some of your members that they are not friendly, they are harassing you, and it came up in several fora that have been where the associations have complained bitterly that the Ghana Revenue Authority has not been business friendly to them.
I think the revenue authorities believe that if you become friendly, that you lose your leverage, and people they want to come on like a Hercules and then drop on the businessman and that you owe me, you pay me. No, the point is they are just tax collectors. They don't make the laws, and they have to understand and appreciate the fact that they are just collecting in behalf of government. So if there's any problem, they can report back to their superiors that these are the issues we encountered. If we do otherwise, because they have good people within themselves that know the benefit of better tax collection, better tax system that will allow government revenue to go up. So these are things that I think we can do together, both sides of the aisle, to make sure that government revenues are not lost on tax administration alone and the tax, collection alone.
In terms of engagement, have you done quite well, Private Enterprise Federation, in engaging the authority, the Ghana Revenue Authority, to deal with some of these concerns? Because there's a school of thought that the lower the rate, the more you can mobilize more for the state than having high tax rate and the implications of avoidance and all those things.
This project was done with GRA as part of our partnership arrangement.
And are they implementing the recommendations in this document?
No, the recommendations have not become law yet.
Okay.
That's
but their approach in collections
the status quo remains.
Legal, or you need a law to back that action?
Yes, we need a law. We need Parliament. So we engaged Parliamentary Finance Committee and both sides of the aisle. They bought into them, and then unfortunately time ran out on us. So we come next year. We're going to engage the parliamentary business groups and then get this act to be passed. Once it's passed, then it becomes the tool that GRA will use. As of now, it's not for GRA. It's for government to agree, and then once the law is enacted, then the taxes will be created, a tax system will be created that will allow the kind of...
You think it will be a major turning point in dealing with the concerns about the mode and how tax collection administration is done in this country?
Oh, yes, because in the countries where they have done that, you know, things have changed drastically, and that, you know, the tax administration almost become friends of the businesses that they were collecting from. So we expect that to happen once those kind of things are, you know.
And recently, there was an announcement by the two credit rating agencies, that is Moody's and Fitch, and we know that Standard & Poor's have also revised and they say they'll come out very soon. Did that give you any relief in terms of the impact on the business environment? Because there are institutions out there, as soon as your country gets into a certain category, they will not deal with you, and that's a fact. How has these marginal improvement meant to PEF or meant to the private sector in terms of their ability to kind of open the door for you for some correspondent banking engagement and all those things?
George, you see, we are in this country together. And we believe that if the information is disseminated correctly to the right business groups overseas and the rating agencies, it benefits all sectors, both government and the private sector. So the private sector was more than willing to engage with Moody's and you know, Standard & Poor's and everybody to make sure that even if the government is making a mistake or disregarding the warning signs on the wall, we want to engage with them to make sure, because we are in this together. And we feel that it's our responsibility partially to make sure that they also understand what is going on.
But are you excited about this development, or, well, a pinch of salt, or maybe much ado about nothing?
Of course. I mean, a slight improvement makes a big difference, George, in the rating agencies, because once there's a margin of profitability, there's a margin of allowance that can accrues to you. So we think that any good thing that the agencies come up with is beneficial to both sides of the aisle.
There's been a sudden push about sustainability, doing things the right way, the impact on the environment. Now, even certain countries in Europe and other countries are now getting hard on how you grow your stuff, in what environment and all the rest, how you mine your stuff and all the rest, and the craze about doing things the right way, and we won't forget about galamsey. For private sector, is it a big challenge for you guys?
Galamsey, George.
And how that is impacting on your ability to even access to credits and even be able to export your stuff to some countries in Europe?
George, galamsey is a death sentence on the nation, because it's eroding everything, every good thing that this country can do and this country has done. Look at our cocoa industry. The cocoa farmers are now selling their land, are now being invaded by galamsey players, and they're running from their land and all. And cocoa, which is the mainstay and the backbone of Ghana's industry and Ghana's economy, is now failing. The expectation that even this year, if we're lucky, we might not even realize about 400, 500, or 450,000 metric tons of cocoa from 1 million. And this is what is supporting government of Ghana. So, and what is the basis of that? Galamsey, because of what they're doing to their lands. If you had ever flown from Takoradi to Accra by air, you see where Pra is entering the sea, where Ofin and entering the sea, that part of the sea has decolorized in a way that is affecting the fishes. It's from Pru and all the way down to the beach. The fish that we eat is being affected. They die. The fishmongers or whatever pick them up. They smoked. We eat them. You know the essence of all the stroke and childbirth deficiencies and all that is affecting. So galamsey, to me, we are arguing that galamsey, even though the Parliament has passed the abolition of death sentence, we think that anybody engaged in galamsey should be hanged, that by after they've been educated in the court of law and found guilty, they should be killed by death penalty.
You think it could send signals to those who are...
Stringent signals to that you may not live to realize and enjoy the profits of your bad deeds. It's like genocide. Galamsey is like genocide. There's no difference because it's pushing people to the point where they don't have a choice but to eat and die. And the sickness that is imparting to us, to me, even though that's the only chance that we think that Parliament should bring back the death sentence for Galamsey players to prevent them from doing.
I know we would put government in a different quarters about the failure to deal with the situation, but private enterprise federation, it involves banks. If you look at the equipment that you see at the mining site, these are big financiers who don't fly the money in space to the mining site. They pass through commercial banks. They pass through other state agencies and institutions, the Shan funds and the Caterpillars and all the rest. In terms of the peer action, whilst we say that government has failed, what is the Federation itself doing together with the commercial banks and other financial institutions to blacklist and deal with individuals who are said to be financing these things?
George, there are laws of the land, and this business has to be banned. This business had to be stopped.
Yeah.
When the Federation, you know, we used to have Association of Small-Scale Miners.
Yes.
They were part of PEF.
Yeah.
They started complaining that there are people invading the forest and doing illegal, you know. We approached the government at the time. I'm not going to go into detail about that. We approached the government at the time and that this is what is happening. Government says we're going to support you and protect these small association farmers who were legitimate businessmen and doing legitimate, mining. What happened? The support that the government provided only lasted 3 months and they were withdrawn, and that was the end. And then Galamsey took his bold steps, and this is where we find ourselves. It's not that we have record of that. We have what we did. We have the meetings we did with the highest levels of government. It didn't stop them because the people who were supposed to protect them became Galamsey players. And now, because there's no law.
That's what the police, there's the military, because you talk about people supposed to protect them.
Yes.
The police, the military, rather got into this practice?
Yes. Yes, because they were withdrawn or they left when they became Galamsey themselves. The Private Enterprise Federation met with the highest levels of government. I can say categorically, I'm not going to provide other details of that. But then, so the small-scale miners felt threatened, and they left their businesses and collapsed their businesses. So the point of Galamsey is that if we don't set up stringent punishment for those indulging that, then it's going to continue. Even though Parliament has passed a death penalty forgiveness and not to kill anybody, for the Galamsey, it's genocide. And what is genocide? Killing the same population and making sure that they cannot survive. That is Galamsey. And on that, we are going to advocate for a death penalty to be imposed on people who are found by the court of law that guilty of Galamsey should be killed.
Now, this is serious. The bit about those who were brought in to protect the small-scale miners ended up in the business of Galamsey.
Thank you, sir.
That is a serious thing. Did that happen?
That did happen. And when they came back and said, now we've been threatened and the support system and the protection is no more, the government says, we were going to look into that and we're going to provide that. We have the record of that. But we're not policemen. We're not armed forces. They were our partners. They were our players. They were our member associations. They were threatened. They left their fields and they were gone.
Now, I still bring back the peer action because I'm saying that for those within this space, they know the big players behind this and not the community boys who are doing that there. The people who are financing those caterpillars to be brought down to those things. Can you guys take the lead by blacklisting some of these individuals? George, to send the signal to government that if you are not going to work, we are taking the lead to deal with the challenge.
We are a land of laws.
Yeah.
And if there's no law that prevents the guy from doing, except lip service that he's a Galamsey player, and Ghana, if you allow sensation and gossip, George Wiafe is a Galamsey player and he's financing. Everybody is financing. So you might end up accusing somebody who is obviously or may not be a Galamsey player or supporting Galamsey. But if there's a court of law there are laws of this land and there are avenues for to prosecute, then we said, let's go to court. If they found guilty, they know that if I'm found guilty, it's considered part of genocide, I'll be killed. Believe me, a lot of people will run from the forest.
And I know that, and the question about the sustainability craze that is going on, and I know EU has this new requirement that will kick in by the end of this year that could impact on our cocoa exports to this country.
Thank you.
How bad has it been for your members who now the European countries are saying that if these things are not done in a sustainable way and your activities are impacting on the environment badly, or your business is found in an environment where it's not being done in a sustainable way, we are going to ban your export to our countries?
Thank you. Cocoa Board now announced the postponement of delivery of 350 metric tons of cocoa this year, postponed to next year. Now, the people who are beneficiaries, who are the contractors to benefit from this 350, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to watch and come next year if this is not delivered on time or there's any, point of not delivery. Then what do? Our cocoa, the entire cocoa industry is going to suffer because they won't trust that we can deliver. So this galamsey is not a child's play. It's affecting every which ways. And I don't think the government likes the idea that they can't even deliver 350,000 metric tons. What we're supposed to do, by what? 55% of the average seasonal output is already harvested, and we only have 429,000 metric tons of cocoa this year. When we started with 2021, we're pushing 1 million metric tons. Now we only get 429. That's income lost to government. And that's what we're pushing, that something has to be done. And that something is a stringent deterrent for anybody indulged in galamsey should be killed as soon as they've been educated in court of law for found guilty for doing that crime.
You think it's a sustainable way in dealing with this challenge?
Believe me, George, I don't think you want to die. I don't think I want to die. So people, once they realize, yes, the government is serious and they're going to be found guilty and they'll be punished, either life imprisonment that they won't see the sun to enjoy the fruits of their illegal labor, or they're going to be killed, believe me, a lot of people will run out of the forest.
Freezing some of these people's account, and is that
freezing account is nothing.
You know, because then they won't get extra money to finance this thing.
How do you freeze the account when you don't know who it is? That's why I said, if they're caught, that's why we're pushing the envelope that let's open the courts of law, let's prosecute, go to have legal entitlement, and then once they're found guilty, this is the punishment. Don't let them live to enjoy the fruits of their life.
Infrastructure, developing local businesses. How are we faring in that area when it comes to private sector as we speak right now?
George,
as there is talk about economic recovery and all the rest, how is that impacting? How are things faring right now in that space when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to supporting indigenous firms and local businesses to expand and then grow?
Infrastructure deficiency, limitation to housing, limitations to various infrastructure projects. Why? Because we don't have the money. Because it's not available to us. And what the government has set up an infrastructure fund. That infrastructure fund, what are we investing in? Let the domestic private sector do that. If they put that fund at the disposal of the businesses, the construction industry, the architects and the planners and all that, we're going to do fantastic. But we have to accumulate the funding. We have to aggregate the funding together and make sure that at a lower cost, make that provision available to private sector. And if the private sector is employing local bricks, Ghana, the whole country is flooded with bricks, clay, red clay. And if you pump that into bricks, why do we use cement? Go to United States, go to United Kingdom, go to France. These mature economies, what do they use for their building? Brick. Brick can be manufactured. And we have abundance. Brick is from clay. And we have abundance of that. Why do we use clinker, imported, and which is not even friendly, climate friendly anyways? And that to build our homes. Let's revert and use clay, that converted to brick. And it's easy. As of now, even brick costs more than cement. Why? Oh, yes, because the way it's manufactured.
Yeah.
There are ways of doing it. If you go to some economists, and we have been there, and we know we can replicate that. We can do bricks, and the cost of housing will come down not less than 50%. Why can't we do? Why aren't we making it mandatory that a local content of every infrastructure should be part brick? Why can't we do? This is our land, this is our home, and we have that in abundance. Why can't we do it, sir?
Maybe it's expensive.
Expensive now, but go to Institute of Applied Science and Technology, go to University of Ghana, go to University
CSR,
of CSR and others.
They will things.
They will tell you how it can be done, using solar energy to get it done. We just love to talk, and we just being lazy that because the cement is here, because it's there. I hear there's a cement company that's actually looking to use a percentage of brick to mix their cement production. This is our country. This is what we have in abundance. Why do we forgo that and go into bring in foreign imports that cost us money?
Nana, Ghana City, I know it's the biggest elephant in the room. I mean, some have attributed the pressure to elections, some have attributed the pressure to, people important for the Christmas festivities and all the rest. For you, what should be the medium to short-term solution in all currencies experience some blips, but to significantly slow or deal with this perennial depreciation challenge?
George, if you reduce the dependency on the foreign currency, if you reduce the dependency for foreign imports, that you use that currency to purchase, the depreciation will be reduced. The currency exchange will be reduced. Back in 2009, if you want to go back, check with any company that is doing for the foreign exchange transactions. The cedi was stronger than the dollar. The cedi was, one cedi was to 98 or 97 pesos. Ghana cedi.
Now, that's something that we are seeing the correction now. Redenomination,
Ghana cedi.
Forcing the values. We are now seeing the correction taking place. And that's why the cedi is depreciating.
No. We
forced the values.
No, we didn't force the value. You see,
the reality on the ground is that the cedi is not that strong.
Was that it was strong in the sense that there was not strong demand and dependency on foreign imports. Now everybody wants to go to London. Everybody wants to go to the United States. Everybody wants to go eat sushi and this kind of food that is foreign to us.
Every country has citizens eat these things.
Yes,
but their currencies are strong.
But their currencies are strong because they have the resources to be able to back it. We have tremendous amount of gold. The Private Enterprise Federation went to government and said, Mr. Government, would you now talk to the mining companies to give us about 10 billion, 100 billion of gold, worth of gold to support our currency. Nobody would ever want to exchange for Ghana cedi. Would the government do that? No, the government didn't do that. The government
Bank of Ghana doing the gold purchase program?
Now, why is Bank of Ghana doing the gold purchase?
Better late than never? Better late than ever?
They want enough reserves to be able to support the currency.
Back, yeah.
But we have the mining companies here. We have the good mining companies here. They're mining, they're taking that away. Can we just tell them, this is our heritage. Don't do it now. If you do, we give you a partial. For the next 5 years, we take every production that you do to support our currency so the currency can be strong enough, and then we will give back the mines for you to continue. Can we not talk to them? Can we not negotiate? We have provided that avenue. That let's discuss that. Why is it being prohibited that Bank of Ghana is buying 20 million a month? 20 million from Bank of Ghana? That's peanuts. That's not enough to support our currency. The demand on the currency is more than 20 million a month. And the bank knows that.
In a minute, in terms of, as you wrap up the outlook, optimistic or cautiously optimistic, as you wrap up in a minute, Nana?
I'm always open for discussion, and I'm very optimistic that the new people who come to government the next year will be more than willing to sit with us and listen to us and together find a common ground and avenue for us to progress and boost our economy to the level where we all will be happy and going home wholeheartedly.
Now, Bonsu is the Chief Executive of the Private Enterprise Federation, getting his thoughts about the economy in the private sector. What is their verdict about the economy? And I know the debate will still go on in your offices and your homes about whether the economy has indeed recovered and what has been the impact on your business as a private firm out there. My name is George Wiafe. This has been PM Express Business Edition.